my pleasure to have you all to this keynote speech this morning. I'm Bo Jiang from East China Normal University. And it's my great honor to introduce our keynote speaker, Professor C.G. Isotani from University of Sao Paulo, Brazil. Professor C.G. Isotani is a visiting professor of Harvard Graduate School of Education and also a professor of computer science and learning technology at University of Sao Paulo, Brazil. Isotani has dedicated his research career to understand how people learn with intelligent educational technology and interactive learning technology, and how to improve the personalized learning experience for that people. So he has published more than 200 scientific research papers in his area, and according to Google Scholar, he is ranked as one of the top 30 most cited researchers in his research field. So his main research interests include gamification in education, intelligent tutor systems, artificial intelligence in education. Besides the scientific research, he also serves the advisor board member to Brazilian Ministry of Education in designing and implementing the public policy related to educational technology. He's also expert in designing the K-12 computer science curriculum in Brazil. So also he was elected as the EC member of the International Society of Artificial Intelligence in Education. So please join me to welcome Professor C.G. Isotani to the stage.
Hello, hello. All right, good. Good morning, everyone. Are you happy or sad? Happy, nice, nice. Today is the last day of ICCE. Thank you for coming and enjoying the last day of this amazing conference. First, let me thank my colleagues, students that have been part of my journey to talk about gamification in education. So there are so many people involved in this work that I've been doing for the past 15 years. So it's nice to see that many of them have become professors as well, researchers, and moving with their lives. So I had when I start to work with gamification, people start to do avatars about myself. So I think this one is a really nice one. So I will jump the exercise that I will try to do with you. And I'm going to start to discuss about what is gamification. So it's interesting because there is a good relationship between gamification and games, but the concepts are different. So the idea of gamification is that you have game elements that are somewhat independent of a whole game. So if you are thinking about serious games and simulations, then it's a whole game, it comes here. When you are thinking about game design elements and using those game design elements to make something more interesting and engaging, then we are thinking about gamification. So just to make sure that we are on the same page. And what are those game design elements? So you can think about several different game elements that are available in any game. So you can think about when we are thinking about the narrative of the game, when we are thinking about the aesthetics, avatars, potential feedbacks, rankings, economics, and so on. So you have several different game design elements that can become aesthetic present in games as well as gamified environments. All right, so, and the question for us is, why does research on gamification in education matters? And I think it's important for us to set the foundations for us to discuss about this topic. So we live in a motivation crisis in traditional learning settings. And it's not me saying this. So if you look into the last PISA 2022 report, they say that less than half of students in OECD countries reported motivation to learn. Intrinsic and instrumental. So instrumental is your willingness and learn with a particular purpose. So you can imagine that less than half of our students are not motivated to learn. So this is a huge problem. So, and there is a strong correlation between motivation and actually learning outcomes. So some may feel a little bit ambivalent about using extrinsic motivators to foster or to help students to actually be intrinsic motivated, right? Are you one of those? Maybe. Nobody wanna raise their hands. Yeah, but what is interesting here is gamification works, baby, right? It works. And the single example that I showed you that most people know about is Duolingo. So Duolingo is the most downloaded and used educational app in the world, in any part of the world. And what they've done throughout the years is clean the interface and look into the particulars of the impact of game elements in our behavior. So in one of the talks with Louis Vanon, who is the founder of Duolingo, he said that they run 100 different interfaces of Duolingo around the world, just to know and understand the impact of game elements or game design elements in students' behavior or user behaviors. So this is interesting for us because when gamification is used properly, then we can actually have positive effects on learning, right? And many people have done meta-analysis on this, and this is from 2020, but we have more recent ones showing that there are effects, positive effects of gamification in our cognition, our motivation, and our behavior towards learning. Okay? So it's interesting for us to realize that and observe that gamification can be an effective method of instruction. The challenge for us now is understand the factors that contribute to this success of gamification. So if you are working with gamification, then you can ask, okay, so why this thing is working in a way that we can actually understand what is happening. And if we understand, then we can actually proper design gamified experience so we can replicate in a better way. So to do that, we need to acknowledge a few things. The first thing is we need to acknowledge the dark side of gamification, right? So gamification is not a silver bullet. So there are negative effects that is related to gamification, and most of them is related with the design. So for example, these are the major negative effects, for example, indifference, loss of performance, undesired behavior, and declining effects. And these are the most elements that impact those behaviors. So for example, the use of leaderboards and badges, leaderboard badges and points, badges and leaderboards, and leaderboards and points. So you can see that when we start to use gamification, just thinking about points, badges, and leaderboards, then you are not properly design gamified experiences. So we need to go one step further. So instead of just thinking about these game design elements, we need to think about the experience, the journey of the student when using those elements. So this is what is interesting. So to do that, we need to have a proper framework of thought to understand how gamification affect our perception. So I bring some that I use in my work. So I don't know if you are familiar with the multimedia learning theory. And usually when we are talking about multimedia learning theory, so you are looking into your senses, especially your ears and eyes. So you see something, you hear something, or you read something, and that information goes to your sensory memory. And you select what you need to pay attention to. So, for example, I'm looking here in this crowd, and I'm paying attention just to a few things, and I'm missing many other things that is happening. So your brain is actually selecting words or selecting images, and with those images and words, so you start making sense of things. And you connect with your prior knowledge. So you bring your past experience, your past understanding, your schemas, and you actually start to make sense of things, right? So this is the multimedia learning theory. And when we start to think about gamification, we go a little bit further and look into more senses. So you can think about the tactile, so you can touch things, you can feel things, you can perceive things, you can smell things. And you start to look about the attention and perception. So what is happening beyond just selecting words. And if you follow this idea, which is same idea, but extended, then you can think about, okay, so how gamification affect this framework here. So you can think about, okay, so it may affect attention and perception. For example, if you work with, have you played Sonic? No, I'm too old, maybe, yes. Oh, the younger ones, yes, very good. So when the coins come out, means that you did something wrong. And this is actually help students, or in this case, kids, to pay attention to a particular situation or a particular object here. And the same thing, we can do it with learning. So if you want to enforce or reinforce something, you can actually use the same kind of structure, the same kind of design to actually change students' perception. And this makes a huge difference in terms of where students are paying attention and if they are actually getting the information that you hope they are getting. All right, so you can think about also modulating using gamification considering motivation and an effect. You can think about what kind of feelings students are having, what kind of emotions we are producing, and by doing this, we can actually support better understanding. We can also work with self-regulation, so thinking about the individual level, group level, internal processes and external processes by using different kinds of game elements. For example, I can use elements related to adventure, so students can actually follow step by step something, and by doing this, he starts to reflect, to monitor, and so on. All right, and finally, we can also look into the process where we actually connect our previous experiences with the current experiences, so we are active in the process and not passive in the process. And we can also think about modulating gamification considering the challenges and the skills that students have. So to do that, Mihaly something, I forgot how to pronounce his name. So I think it was Mihaly, or something like this, right? So you can actually modulate the challenges and the skills, so you actually work in a flow state. So students feel the sense that they are doing things that is hard enough, but they can complete that particular task. So if it's too hard, they start to be anxious and they quit it. If it's too easy, it becomes bored, the students become bored and they quit it. So we need to find this sweet spot, right? Nice. So this is the framework of thought. So how we can actually design gamification experiences, especially personalized gamification experiences. And using that framework of thought, then we can propose a framework to design personalized gamification experiences. So first, we can ask, okay, so how to design these personalized gamification activities, considering that we are in a learning space. And I came up with 4 steps. So first, think about the user experience and the narrative that you want to create. So the space, the environment that you want to involve students at. Second is thinking about the learning goals, and then the instructional process that you are going to use. And finally, and only finally, at the end of the process, you think about the gamification elements. The nice thing is, all of these steps, you can actually use different frameworks that people have created. So for example, for user experience and narrative, we have the hero's journey. Hero's journey is well known in the space of design, especially game design, or if you work as in the space of media and narrative. Hero's journey is the idea of putting a user in a situation where they are gonna have a call here, a call for the adventure, and then I'm gonna have a crisis here. So I don't wanna go, I don't know what to do, I'm afraid. And then you meet someone like a mentor, and that mentor provides you with the support you need for you to start an adventure and a transformation. So you transform yourself so you can actually lead with, you can actually address more problems that you were not able to do before, right? So this is the hero's journey. In learning goals, Bloom's taxonomy is frequently used, so we can actually understand it and use it for our purpose. Instructional process, we have EDDI. So EDDI is also a well-known way of thinking when we are designing instructional activities. And finally, using gamification elements. Okay, so nobody have done this. And we have to do that. So to select game design elements to support learning, we actually interview several professionals working on that space, and we came up at the end with a taxonomy of game design elements that are frequently used in learning environments. So now we have all the pieces of that particular puzzle, and we can start to scratch and design things and trying to understand how to create a framework to support the design of personalized gamified learning experiences. So we start with this. Okay, so this was the work one of my PhD students, Paula, and she started to combine, okay, so let's try to combine the hero's journey with learning goals. And then, okay, so let's try to combine everything else with game elements. And now let's combine with instruction design. So, and at the end of the day, after several interactions and results, we came up with this process here. So here you have the hero's journey that is driving the design. So call to action, you have the trial, a transformation of the student, and the application of what he or she or they has learned. Inside here, so you do have the 80 model here. You have gamification over here, and you do have the Bloom's taxonomy over here. And what we can do with this is we can use this process to actually design activities. So for example, here in call to action, so you need to provide students with a purpose and meaning, a space where students can be immersed, and think about autonomy and creativity. So this space is free. And when we're thinking about here, so you have the personal dimension here, which is gaming elements that you can use for this particular, to foster this particular purpose. And for example, you have elements related to sensation, objectives, puzzles, renovation, and novelty, right? And for example, in this part here, which is the crisis, so you need to take the student out of their comfort zone. So they don't need to be happy all the time. You need to actually put students in a situation that is a little bit stressful, so they can feel uncomfortable with that particular situation, so you can actually work with them to overcome that situation. So you can think about here, and you have elements of game elements over here. So you can look into progression, levels, points, stats, and so on. So we are personalize the experience of students, not looking into player profiles, but actually thinking about the user experience. So it's a different way of personalizing students' experience using gamification. All right, so this is the idea. So the question is, okay, so it's really nice. Does it work? Maybe you have something like it's BS, right? Doesn't work, and have lots of publications. I'm happy, student is happy, but at the end of the day, students, we cannot design something that matters. So we tested out several times, including having no results and very good results. So I'm gonna present one of them here. So this one was with computer science students. So you have an environment here where students can actually start to learn how to code. Those who don't know this is C, if I'm not mistaken. Or this is Python, Python. Good, much better. All right, and we start to combine this environment with game elements. So we start to put gamification elements over here. So students can choose their avatar, can fill questionnaires to understand their profiles, and using several different game design elements, using that whole process that I mentioned you about. And students also have this space where they can actually have a social life inside that environment. So you click a button, you come here, and you start to solve problems to actually move in this map. All right, so, oops, okay, let's see. Okay, so what we've done is we ran a study, 2+2 by 2, with and without gamification, with and without this personalized gamified experience. And we look just with one variable, which is the time over the week. So every week we analyze, okay, so how much time students are using that particular tool, and considering some measures. So attempts, IDEA usage, and system access, right? So we want to understand the relationship between what is happening with these three variables here and these ones here. So we run with about 700 students over 2 years. All right. So this is the final result. There are several other ones, but this is the most interesting one. This one shows the difference between the gamified and no gamified experience, right? So if here, so this effect size here is 0.40 something, it means that the difference between the gamified and non-gamified experience is this one, right? All right. So, and you can see that over time, we have changes here, so in the measures. And what is interesting when we start to look at this and say, okay, so in the first 2 weeks, so we say, okay, so we are having like really strong results using gamification in comparison to non-gamified environment. So this is really nice. And then the next 2 weeks, so we saw a huge drop. And we said, oh my God, we are gonna have the same problem as others have done, which is the declining effect, right? So, and we were, okay, so let's pray and see if what's gonna happen. Hopefully everything's gonna be okay. And we trust in our design. And what happened after is an improvement again. So we say that here, students suffer from the novel effect here in the first 2 weeks, and then you have a decline, and then students start to use again. So they say, okay, I still like those elements. I still like that experience. It's not 100% what I expecting, but it's still, I enjoy that experience, right? So we have positive impact on students, right? My authors didn't like, but I call this phenomena the smiley effect. And why smiley effect? Is that for me was like, oh, smiley effect. The people are happy, they are using the system, and we have this U shape here. So in the paper is like U shape, but I call smiley effect. All right. Just to now, with that result, we start to think about, okay, so how can you now assist teachers to actually use this framework and design gamified scenarios, right? And thinking about other variables as well. My time is up, or? No, it's okay? Okay, good. All right. So we collect data from over 300 people on the web from different nationalities, and we start to investigate how to create systems that semi-automatically help teachers in the process of designing gamified learning scenarios or personalized gamified learning scenarios. So we look into variables related to location, the activity types, the learning activity types, gender, game preferences, and so on. And we run some machine learning algorithms, and we come up with the decision tree here that help us to understand, for example, how to look into different variables and make a decision. For example, this one is country, and especially in Netherlands and Spain, they prefer objectives. So elements like objectives. And if you look into others, for example, here, so if you think about Albania, Brazil, and so on, gender starts to make an effect, right? So it's interesting to think about different countries may have different desires to use or may impact, game elements may impact differently. All right, so then we create a system that we call Garfield, which is the idea is, okay, so let's use some of these variables that we obtain and create a system that can help teachers to make a decision about what is the game elements and the design process that they should actually use. So this ones here is inside our framework and using the gamification taxonomy. So it helps the teachers to actually make decisions about what to do, considering, for example, gender, degree, and other variables here. All right. So it's interesting because it's data-driven, so it's based on data. So if you don't like it, you can collect more data and having the same result, but with different, how can I say, emphasis. It's multi-dimensional, so we are looking not just on one variable, but several different variables to make decisions. And finally, it's transparent, so because it's easy for people to actually follow through this process and understand what is going on. So it's not invisible to them how data and personalization occurs. All right, so summarizing our conversation of today, personalized gamification seems to work, but how it works, for whom it works, and for how long still remains open questions to be answered. And I think it's interesting for young minds who want to pursue work on that space to think through about how you can come up with experiences and systems that actually can help us to answer those questions. So a few less challenges that I have in, here is thinking about how you can maximize the benefits of personalized gamification so that students are both engaging in playing, but also focus on learning. So, both in games and in gamification, serious games in particular, you have a challenge because the more playful the system is, the more engaged the system is, the less students learn. And there is an interesting paper from colleagues at Carnegie Mellon that shows that. So they produce like 40, 50 games, and the ones that had more students enjoy more were the ones that students learn less. So what is the best the sweet spot, we don't know. So this is one thing. How to better design AI technologies to guide teachers during the design of gamified educational experiences. So especially nowadays, it's really hard for teachers to follow this process step by step without any AI support or any guidance. So how we can actually design technologies that help teachers and not provide an extra burden to them is another challenge. Not just in the space of gamification, but the space of any AI technology. The third one is how to use data-driven gamification designs to provide more equity and equality in education. So thinking about the different variables, how we can use those variables in a way that we can actually promote participation, access, more equity using gamified environments. So just for you, I didn't present today, but for example, the way how you design the experiences affect or may affect in different ways boys and girls. So we've done several experiments showing the difference in the results of gaming elements for boys and girls. So this, you can imagine when you are designing a technology, then it comes to play. So you need to pay attention to that variable. And finally, try to reduce the dependence of questionnaires and user preferences and player types, which they are interesting, but we can automatize this process in a better way using different variables and without being too much dependent of variables such as questionnaire, the answers of questionnaires. So we've done a study showing that over time, the preferences changes. And if you would then use the questionnaires, then you actually are designing something that over time will not have an effect and maybe will have actually the opposite effect, which is harming students' learning, right? All right, so thank you very much, and let's enjoy the rest of the day.
Thank you for CG's very inspiring, very interesting keynote speech. I think maybe some audience have some questions, and before I give 1 minute for audience to think the question, but first I have a question. I'm very interested in your idea of user design. May I ask the first question and give you the opportunity? I'm very interested in your idea of user decision tree to analyze, to predict students' personal his preference element, but this is it offline or online?
It is offline. So it is offline. So we collect the data and we create the tree, and then we use it to support the to semi-automatize the designing process.
So this is possible to make it online to automatically detect student preference.
That's a good question. It could be partially online because you need to gather at least a good amount of data so you can actually update. So if not, so every data point you try to update the tree then become a burden, especially in terms of processing. So I don't think it's the best approach to do, but a compromise between 100% offline and 100% online could be one possible pathway to go.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you for the interesting presentation, Seiji. The first question I have is how much gamification works for that optimal learning outcome? And the second question would be for more modern gamification elements, what other actual elements are there aside from badges, leaderboard, avatars, or game currencies?
Nice. So the first question, I don't have an answer. So what I can say is there are studies that shows that if you put too much game elements on the interface, students lose attention because they pay attention only on the game elements and start to lose attention into the content. So this is one problem. So it's the same problem of finding the sweet spot, right? So we don't know what is the best number of elements that can be on an interface. Regarding the second question, so I'm sorry, I think I lost the second question.
What other elements, specific
Oh,
game
yes,
elements?
yes. So there are different elements that you can use it. So the one that I like the most is narrative. So instead of thinking just badges, leaderboards, badges, and points, so you can think about narrative, experience, feedback, and missions, and so on. So every element that helps students to self-regulate are interesting. So when we start thinking about missions, students need to complete something, and they have limited amount of time, and maybe the limited amount of resources, they need to start to think about their own behavior and how to behave with the system to maximize their experience.
Hi, Seji. My name is Namrata. That was a really interesting talk. My question is related to, I'm just curious to know your opinion about the assessments in these game-based environment. Do you advocate for partial credits or not?
About what?
About assessments in these game-based environment, like how to do assessments.
Right, so but your last sentence was?
My last sentence was like, do you advocate for the use of partial credits? For example, not giving the full credit to the student, but even for the attempts they are making or the efforts they are paying on, we are giving some kind of credit to them.
I see. Yeah, so assessment is a huge problem or an interesting challenge in any space, both gamification, using AI in education, so people are talking about assessment nowadays. And from my perspective, when you start to do assessment in the conventional way, you start, you trigger how can I say? You trigger in students something that they must do. And because they must do, then some of them will say, I don't want to do, because now I must do, so I don't want to do. And then all the benefit that you would gain from gamification, you start losing, just because you said that you are going to assess them. Now, there are other ways that colleagues of mine have done, which is using item response theory. So without creating an assessment, a specific assessment, you actually track student progress. And by track student progress, you don't need to make an evaluation and assessment. While they are interacting, you are keeping track of that particular information, and it is stable, and you can get the results at the end. So my approach when we are thinking about gamification is using hidden ways of assessing students rather than giving an evaluation or asking for credit or something else. So every attempt that you try to enforce something will be detrimental to student learning and motivation and engagement.
Hi, thank you. This is Tiffany. So I'm also doing gamification, and that's why I have some interesting question about your opinion in terms of adaptive or personal gamification. So quite a lot scholars, they have this criticism on gamification being pure pointification. Like we focus too much on the points or the assignments of the game elements, but losing the point of giving the adaptive learning experience in terms of the learning content, learning material, those core content coming from learning. So I noticed that for this sharing, you focus more on how to assign the personalized game elements based on student motivational needs. But I also want to learn something from you about the adaptive learning experience, the content, those parts. I noticed you mentioned one about the IRT. So how about others, some learning quest? I just want to hear more about your recent research in terms of the learning content provision side.
Nice. So this is a whole different space, which is trying to identify the best content that helps students to stay in the flow. So the idea is, okay, so if you want students to keep in the flow, so you need to have content that match with student skills and sometimes challenge them a little bit. There are research on this topic, including in games, so how you put students in different levels according to their past experiences, but this is not a work that I do. So I particularly do not conduct work on thinking about what is the next content that should be presented or the content that match the students' levels. So I cannot provide an informed decision about that particular question. But it's a super interesting topic.
Thank you for interesting talk about exploration to finding a fundamental of the gamification. So my question is about the design of the learning environment. So in your framework, so firstly, the third step, so based on the instructional design process model, ADI model, so the learning environment is designed. And then so the gamification element is attached to that. At that time, but so in the learning environment design, so that is also in your framework, so that is just the same as a kind of the conventional learning environment, or for apply the gamification, how to say, what the designer think is a difference, so to apply the gamification elements, so also the instruction process, so they think the other things or something, so you strictly cut the design and the attachment of the gamification is clearly separated or integrated or something like that. So I want to know that.
Yeah, the system design is a whole different space as well. So if you think about my work is providing enough information so you can start the design process of an environment with information related about what kind of gaming elements you should use, what is the narrative that students will follow, and this needs to become a reality when you are designing a system. There are, in my team, there are people from media space, and they are experts in thinking about the design of systems, right? So we don't have like a structure about how to think, but they have a structure about how to think when they are designing and exploring different interfaces. And usually what happens is trial and error several times. So we do lots of think alouds, lots of drawings and testing before we end up with a final interface. So it's a process of, it's a HCI process here. And what we provide to interface designers, developers, is what they need to work with, right? So instead of selecting any kind of game element, no, you need to work with this kind of elements in this kind of situation for a particular purpose. So that's information I provide to them. So in terms of design, we can think about the whole process of designing interfaces and interactions.
I'm sorry, so thank you. But I want to know for example, so the paradigm of the system, so learning support systems, interactive learning environment. What is the difference from that design? So in your framework, so just the same as the design the interactive learning environment, and then so the other gamification elements. So before the editing the gamification elements, so that is the same as the design of the interactive learning environment.
Yes, it's the same. It's the same. Because the challenge here is not changing what other people have done, is thinking about how the interaction of key elements may affect what students perceive and how they behave. So let me give you an example. So in intelligent Turing systems, we have a problem that is called gaming the system. So students, because they know that the Turing system will provide feedback for them, and if you fake that you don't understand something, you will get a response from the ITS. Now you can think about how can I redesign an ITS so that particular behavior do not appear. So it's just adding game element. But you need to think about how gaming elements may affect the behavior of students so they do not provide that particular behavior. So in this case, one of my students have done is, every time you ask for feedback multiple times, so you start losing hearts, similar to Duolingo now. So we start to do that before Duolingo. So we had hearts, and when we perceive that students start to game the system, we start reduce hearts. And just by doing this, students now stop doing, start to game the system. So this is just one thing. But to decide that you need to use hearts, and that hearts, you make that effect, that is where our work comes, right? So you can decide, okay, maybe I can use points, but points have a problem, right? Maybe I can use missions. Missions do not solve that particular situation, or is not designed to solve that particular situation. So you need to think about, okay, so what is the best game element to change a particular behavior? And that's where our framework comes to play.
Okay, thank you very much.
One more last question.
Thank you, Seiji. This is Sahana from IIT Bombay here.
Oh, hey.
Yeah, hi. Okay, thanks for your talk. So my question is about using gamification as a layer on different types of content or different learning goals. And I don't mean the Bloom's taxonomy exactly, but to give you an example, one teacher might want to use gamification for students to learn content, like some new content. Another pedagogical goal might be, science inquiry or math problem solving, and add gamification elements to, say, science inquiry. So is there any way we want to think about the design of gamification when we have different pedagogical goals?
Yes, there is. Usually, there is one work that we've done that we described learning activity types. And learning activity types is related to content. So for example, if you want to design something for mathematics and another system for learning languages, you may use different experiences and game elements to change how students behave and how they interact with the content. So we need to understand in that particular situation what is the learning activity type that you have, so you can actually design something that is personalized for that particular activity and not for a generic. Because if we don't do this, we are always going to have like the same interface, the same activities, and it's going to change just because of the user. But what we want to do is change the experience, and by changing the experience, you actually learn more. And to do that, we need to think about the activities they are doing. So the learning activity types is one way of doing that.
Okay, thank you. Thank you for Isotani's very
Thank you very much.
topic, keynote speech and communication.